Hey man, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. In this video, we're going to look at the best bad credit cards on the market with a focus on unsecured credit cards that don't require a security deposit up front. In terms of the definition of bad credit, there isn't a solid one, but we are going to use a 600 credit score and below as sort of the general definition. Some lenders might say bad credit is 620 and below. Some might say 580 and below, but we're going to use 600 as the mark. The closer you are to 600, the more options you will have. The further below 600 you are, your options are going to dwindle, and at some point they're going to get very bad, and you might be better off getting a secured card even though it requires a security deposit. And we will get back to that as we go along. Now, we are not talking about cards for people that are new to credit here. We are talking about cards for people that have had credit and things didn't go so well, and now you're looking to rebuild your credit score. Now, there are three lenders in particular where I think you should start and see if you can get approved with one of these first before you sort of go down a tier in terms of what I think of as the quality of potential lenders. In the description below and the first comment under this video, you can see a link to our bad credit cards page on ProudMoney.com, and you could go there and use those links if you choose, or you could go straight to these websites. So those three lenders are Capital One, Petal, and Mission Lane. So let's start with Capital One. Probably the easiest of the major bank lenders out there to be approved for a credit card if you have bad credit. Now, not if you have terrible credit, but if you have credit that would be considered bad, you might look at the Capital One Platinum card. Very bare bones card, but it's got no annual fee. It does have a high interest rate. You're probably not going to get a very high credit line from that card or any card with bad credit. But if you can get your foot in the door there with Capital One and be approved for the Capital One Platinum, that's at least going to put you sort of on the best first step on your journey, I would say. So you can go straight to the Capital One Platinum page and you could apply for the card. They might offer you a different card if you don't qualify for the Platinum, but then they also have a pre-approval tool on their website that you could use to try to see what your chances are of approval. These pre-approval tools are not guaranteed. No credit situation is guaranteed in terms of approval, but it is a way maybe to gauge how Capital One looks at you. In terms of the other major lenders out there, Discover may be the only other one that would consider you with a bad credit score. All the rest of them maybe with secured cards, but not with unsecured. Next up is Mission Lane, a smaller credit card company that specializes in cards for people with bad credit or people with fair credit. The terms and conditions you'll get on the Mission Lane Visa are going to vary depending on how good or bad your credit history is. You could potentially have no annual fee on their card. You might have an annual fee of up to $59. The interest rate you're going to get on the card is going to vary, obviously, with how bad your credit history might be, and then the same thing in terms of how much of a credit limit you are going to get. Now, a couple things you'll like with Mission Lane. Number one, they say that after the first 6 months, assuming you've made all of your payments on time, they are going to start automatically looking at your account to decide if they should give you a credit limit increase. And that's always going to be a concern with cards for people with bad credit because you usually start out with a very small credit limit. And so it's nice to know that there is a path already sort of blazed where you could potentially get that credit limit increased. And then the second thing with Mission Lane, they do have a pre-qualification tool on their website. When you use that, they are essentially going to tell you whether you are going to be approved or not without any hard pull on your credit. And then if you go through and actually get the card, accept the card, that's when the hard pull would happen. Now, it's not guaranteed that you would be approved after a pre-approval, which is always the case, but they say unless they can't verify your identity or they can't verify your income, those are sort of the only two times when you would not get approved after being told that you would be approved. And then number three is Petal, another smaller credit card company that started out serving people that were new to credit but added a second credit card product called the Petal One Visa that is geared more toward people that have had some past credit problems and are looking to rebuild their credit. Like the Capital One Platinum card that we talked about at the beginning, this is kind of a no-frills card. You're going to have a high interest rate and there's not going to be any rewards, not going to be a whole lot going on with this card. There is a pre-qualification tool on their website as well that you can use to at least get a pretty good idea as to whether they are going to approve you for that card. So those are the lenders I would start with. If you can get approved from one of them, great. For some people, your credit score is going to be too low and you're going to have to take sort of a step down to the next tier of bad credit cards. Now, all the companies I'm going to talk about sort of in this tier, I think, are not going to have great credit cards necessarily. You're going to be using these as a stepping stone to build your credit and hopefully get better cards down the road, but all of them I think have a decent reputation in the market and you're not going to feel like they are taking advantage of you. I guess that's the way I would put it. So card companies I'm thinking of in this space, we've got Avant, Merrick Bank, Mercury, the Mercury MasterCard. There is Alo, and then Prosper has come out with a new card within the last year and a half or so. All of these would be okay choices as you build your credit. Now, all of the cards that we've talked about so far are general use bank cards, MasterCard or Visa cards that you can use wherever those types of cards are accepted. But we also should talk about retail store credit cards. Now, store credit cards get sort of a bad name because they have very high interest rates, but if you are someone with bad credit, they can be a way to build your credit. They are often going to be friendlier to lower credit scores, and as long as you pay off your bills in full, you won't pay those terrible interest rates. So there are a lot of retail store cards on the market and all of them can help you build your credit. Probably for most people, getting a card that is very narrow with a store that, only sells clothes or only sells auto parts or whatever, that's not necessarily the way you're going to want to go, because then you're going to have a card that you're not going to use very often and it's not going to help you build your credit very quickly. But there are cards like the Walmart credit card that obviously allows you to buy a lot of different things. You have the Amazon store card that is issued by Synchrony Bank that gives you a lot of usage on Amazon. The Best Buy credit card is another one that you can potentially get with a lower credit score and would give you sort of a wider usage than some of the other retail store cards out there. So definitely take a look at those and decide if those are something that you might want to use as you pursue your credit journey. Now, if you haven't been able to get approved for any of the things that we have talked about, if we take a step down, we're going to be looking at things like Credit One, which is a company that serves bad credit customers for sure. But if you have a low credit score, you're going to have high fees, you're going to have high interest, you're going to have low credit lines. There is Continental Finance that has a number of cards, the Reflex card, Surge, Verve, and there are some other brands there as well. There is Genesis Bank card, which is going to have things like the Indigo MasterCard and the Destiny MasterCard. Milestone credit card is from them too as well. All of these are maybe okay to use as a stepping stone, but they're going to be very expensive. You're going to have a very small credit line and you're going to pay an awful lot to get it. Would rather see you go into one of the other cards if you can qualify, or at this point, probably go for a secured card, even though you'd have to put down a security deposit. And then there are other unsecured credit cards that target bad credit customers out there that I definitely think you should avoid. If you see a situation where you have a program fee, whatever that means, just to get the credit card, and then you have an annual fee, and then you have some sort of monthly maintenance fee that kicks in as well, that is a company that in my view is taking advantage of your bad credit status and hoping that you don't know any better and that you don't go further out on the market to see what else is out there. So two cards in particular that I always point out. First Premier has just a ton of fees, super high interest rate, the Total Visa as well, and there may be others out there on the market. So that covers most of your options in the unsecured credit card world if you have a lower credit score. Now, if you are looking at cards in those last couple tiers that we talked about, I think you might be better off, instead of going after an unsecured card with their low limits and their high fees and high interest rates, go after a secured card instead. It is not desirable, I know, to put down a security deposit in order to get a credit card, but oftentimes the terms on secured credit cards are going to be better. A lot of them don't have any annual fees. A lot of them are going to have interest rates that are high, but not quite as bad as some of the unsecured cards. Your credit limit is usually going to be the same as whatever you put down as a security deposit, so you have some control over your credit limit. Plus, a lot of these cards are going to come from the major banks, and they could be a potential foot in the door where you start with a secured card, and as you make your payments on time, over time, you could graduate to one of their other unsecured cards. And remember that the security deposit that you put down on a secured credit card is refundable when you no longer want the card or you have graduated to an unsecured card with the bank. Well, then you will get that money back. Again, in terms of cards I'd recommend here, you might start with the Discover card or possibly Navy Federal Credit Union if you can qualify to be a member of Navy Federal, because those cards have the reputation of graduating to an unsecured card faster than some of the other ones out there on the market. But you also might look at Bank of America, US Bank as two good places to start. If you want to go outside of the big banks, the Open Sky secured credit card also can potentially be a good place to start. It doesn't have the possibility of graduating you to an unsecured card, but it's got better terms than a lot of the other cards out there on the market. So that is a look at the bad credit market, especially on the unsecured end. If there are cards that I haven't talked about that you'd like an opinion on, ask me in the comments below. If you have other comments, put those down there too. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews, we talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. If you're not going to leave a comment or go to the website, the next video you should watch is right there.